religious bodies and create and get a seed money for the establishment of the Free Senior High School Fund. And we think that if they get that, that will also come into support that. Then we are proposing, finally, that government should explore blended financing models that combine government, private sector, and donor contributions. The takeaway from here is that we cannot continue to rely on government funding to fund education. Yesterday, I made a point that in 2023, the money that was used to fund free SHS came from the ABFA. We didn't get one peso supporting free SHS from government coffers, and we know the reason why that happened. Now, we ask ourselves, that source, which is the oil fund, is not sustainable. If you look at the various reports from the oil reports, you would note that that source is not sustainable. So in order to ensure that this policy is sustainable and it is able to travel along a longer period of time, we need government to come out with other modes of funding the policy that we have already suggested here. So that if government is in distress, we will still have some money somewhere that is supporting the policy. We give this simple example of the tertiary institutions, the universities. You agree with me that sometimes they use their IGF to do so many things when government subvention is not in. That's the same model that we want to suggest for the funding of the Free Senior High School. That when there are multiple sources of funding the policy, government can have a little relaxation, and then when there's money there, the government can continue to support the other sources. So government cannot continue to shoulder the burden of funding Free Senior High School. There should be other modes of funding Free Senior High School. Finally, we agreed that whatever funding mechanism we want to use to fund basic education, secondary education, tertiary education should be adequate, it should be efficient, and it should be equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we give it up? Another round of applause for finance. So we invite Professor Ananga's group. Quality. Okay. Quality is not ready. Research, please. Quality is there. So please come over. Quality. Thank you. Please. Have you? Oh, you got it. Hey. Fine, let them go. Yeah. You are presenting this?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon. So I'm presenting on behalf of the TVET Quality Group. A relatively small group, but I hope we've done some good work. Can you change the slide? So these are the group members: CTVET, Cape Coast Technical University; GTVET, Ministry of Education; GIZ, the private sector, Elgin Company, and I was the secretary. I didn't make any, I don't know so much about TVET, but I wrote down everything that they were saying. So any errors are mine. So we thought we'd start with a slide. We haven't heard much about TVET so far over the past 2 days, so we just wanted to give you some good news about TVET. I think there is a general perception that TVET isn't going very well, but actually there's been some very good progress in recent years. We have 15 now sector skills bodies. We've developed competency-based qualifications in partnership with industry for all of those sectors, incorporating what we call workplace experience learning well. There is a national TVET qualifications framework. Don't ask me to say the acronym, NTVETQF. We need to get better at acronyms, I think. That provides clarity on the learning pathways, and we have recognition of prior learning, so people that have acquired their skills informally, it can now be certified and recognized. We had 3 acts of parliament passed in 2020 to establish the Commission for TVET, CTVET, which is the regulatory body for TVET, established the Ghana TVET service, so for the first time, all of our pre-tertiary TVET institutions are under a single agency. And then we created AMUSTED, the Akenta Apiamenka University of Skills, Training and Entrepreneurship Development. Akenta Apiamenka University of Skills, Training and Entrepreneurship Development. AMUSTED provides an opportunity to enhance the quality and relevance of TVET instructor training, and then also technical universities now offer higher level qualifications in TVET up to doctorate level, so you can get a doctorate in a TVET qualification. And then we have a national TVET policy that has been finalized and will shortly be approved by the government of Ghana through the Honourable Minister, I'm sure. So those are the good things. We should be proud of what we've done. But we identified 5, thank you. So let's clap for TVET. It's good progress. But there are 5 main issues and challenges that we identified that we're going to try to address. First, issues with the implementation of competency-based training, CBT, where you're assessing can people actually do these things. Some trainers are not fully conversant in CBT approaches and they lack up-to-date industry experience. The second issue, difficulties in creating industry partnerships and issues with the workplace experience learning. Third, overcrowded TVET, yes, slide, thank you. Third, overcrowded TVET institutions, pre-tertiary and tertiary, which lack infrastructure, practical materials and equipment, and then a variable quality of leadership in TVET institutions, with some leaders not showing the entrepreneurial approach and business acumen required to succeed in the sector. We heard His Excellency talk yesterday about Ghanaian leadership standards. We need different standards in TVET institutions as we do for mainstream education, because the skill set required is more industry focused, it's different. And then we also have issues with gender equality, social inclusion and sustainability in some TVET institutions. So, recommendations. So the first issue, what can we do to address issues with the implementation of CBT? First of all, we need to be realistic. We need to be realistic about where we are as Ghana, as a country. We can't just be importing other people's ideologies and other people's way of doing things. We need to look at making CBT work for Ghana. We need to develop a 5-year plan to improve the fidelity of CBT implementation, looking at the range of institutions, which ones are doing CBT well, which ones are further away, so we can have a practical plan. And that must include teaching and non-teaching staff and consider issues of motivation. Motivation is really critical. We can talk all we want about technical solutions, but if the teaching staff and the non-teaching staff are not feeling motivated, the best plans we put in place are not going to be implemented. Secondly, introduce a trainer currency system. Every trainer in a public TVET institution must have a background in that trade, and they must go back into industry for a minimum of 22 days per year to ensure that their skills are current. I might have trained in industry 10 years ago. What industry is doing today is very different to what it was doing 10 years ago. So 22 days a year back into industry. We need to ensure that progression and promotion pathways for trainers recognize and reward industry experience rather than being over-reliant on academic qualifications. I'm a bit nervous about saying this given all the professors in the room, but sometimes in Ghana we focus too much on academic qualifications and not enough on practical experience and expertise. And in TVET, I speak as someone that is trying and failing to get a PhD at UCC. So I'm being very honest about it. But particularly in TVET, we need to focus on that industry expertise. We need to consider stricter enforcement of specialisms for technical institutes and technical universities, so they don't try to cover all sectors, but instead they're guided by data. Unfortunately, we know what happens at the moment. Technical universities feel that they need to generate as much income as possible, so they start to put on all sorts of courses that are not related to their specialism. And we have a disconnect between the products of the universities and the labor market. And that is an issue. It's a significant issue. And then we need to involve industry representatives in the final CBT assessments, along with assessors from TVET institutions. CBT means that I can practically do something. If we involve people from industry in doing that final practical assessment, then industry will have the confidence that, yes, this person can really do what their certificate says, and then they will take them on. So that's the first issue. Second, recommendations. Hey, I'm on the second one and you're on the third. Are you telling me to... I'm glad you've been listening to what I've been saying. The second one. Recommendations to enhance industry partnerships. Without employers, TVET won't work. At the moment, with the workplace experience learning, the placements can be as short as 8 weeks, and the employers are not happy about that. They say, you're bringing these young people, they're breaking our machines, they don't know what they're doing. Let's make the placements longer, so that the employers can get some economic benefit out of the learners. If they're there for 9 months, for 12 months, the employer sees that they're then starting to deliver benefits to the business, like national service. Many employers like taking national service because they're getting cheaper labor. But if the people are getting skills as well, so let's look at extending the length of those placements so employers see the bottom line benefits of giving the placement. Let's change the TVET calendar. Let's change the calendar for TVET instead of aligning it with GES so that technical institutes have a longer time in the year to do industry attachments than is currently the place. And when we communicate with employers, let's focus on the business benefits to them. Let's not focus on the corporate social responsibility. Ultimately, a business is there to make a profit. So let's show the employers how by investing in this, it can help them increase profits rather than looking at CSR. Government should consider incentives such as tax breaks or measures such as payroll levies to encourage companies to offer placements. And I'll come to that in a minute. And then we need to utilize sector skills bodies to enhance employer dialogue. You, Marty. Number 3. Recommendations to overcome the challenges of overcrowded TVET institutions. I promised GTVET I would give a positive and a negative. If we look at our technical institutes, Dabukpa Technical Institute in Tamale, very, very high quality technical institute. Another technical institute I went to, I won't mention the name, it's in Western region. There were 96 learners in an electrical engineering class and they did not have one piece of wire between them. And you wonder, what are those people going to be doing? So we have a lot of, it's true, unfortunately this is the reality. We have some very, very good institutes and we have others that are not so good. Let's respect the harmonized CBT guidelines. We have guidelines. Our guidelines say 20 learners per 1 tutor. So let's try to respect them as much as possible instead of trying to put as many people as possible into a class. Let's introduce a TVET fund backed by Get Fund. 20% of expenditure is then going to TVET to provide funding for materials, practicals, infrastructure. Partner with industry to reduce reliance on TVET institutions' own equipment. This is the #1 mistake that I've seen countries make. I made this mistake myself when I was Gordon Brown's apprenticeship advisor in the UK. You spend a lot of money as government buying expensive equipment, expensive machines, and you put them in TVET institutes, and in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, they're obsolete. And nobody knows how to use those machines anyway. Work with industry. Work with industry, partner with employers. So what will happen, you just have to provide the classroom. 2 days a week, 3 days a week, they're in the classroom. 2 days a week, 3 days a week, they're with the employer. They're using the employer's machines. It is a lot cheaper giving tax breaks. It is a lot cheaper giving tax breaks to employers, giving incentives to employers, than it is to buy your own white elephant machines and put them inside your own institutions. This means that TVET institutions have to specialize. If you're in Tema, you should be focusing in manufacturing. If you're somewhere in Northeast region, you should focus on agriculture. Focus on linking to your economy. We cannot do everything in every technical institute. We need to take hard choices about what institutions do. Let's look at what the best institutions are doing. Set up production units as mini industries in TVET institutions. If we're looking at buying furniture, GES, please, let's buy from the technical institutes. If we're looking at buying a uniform, let's buy uniforms from the technical institutes. Let's look at a virtuous cycle of funding. I've almost finished. We need to introduce Ghanaian TVET leadership standards, developed in partnership with industry, setting out the expectations, the behaviors of entrepreneurial leaders. Develop a performance management for TVET framework for TVET institutions linked to those standards, and then introduce tracer studies. The incentives in the system are not right. We need a joined-up approach between enrollment and the needs of the labour market to stop institutions taking on learners to improve their own financial position and then not caring what happens to those learners when they remain unemployed after graduation. Let's introduce tracer studies for all of those institutions so we can see how many people are actually getting employed. And finally, sustainability, inclusion, green and digital skills. TVET institutions should be intentional about considering the needs of all learners, including gender stereotypes, catering for those with disabilities, disadvantaged backgrounds when developing institutional plans. And then we need to operationalize. We have new qualifications. I didn't know until today. We have qualifications in renewable energy. We have qualifications in recycling. So let's look at operationalizing those. Let's look at institutions taking those on in a partnership, technical universities, government bodies. University of Ghana, you want to save 5 million on your electric bill, partner with a TVET institution to do renewable energy. And there we go, I have finished. Thank you very much. Merci pas.
Thank you so much. Can we give it to him again? Chama, I want to get guidance from the other members of the quality group. If they are ready, then we take everything. Quality is... Are you ready? Professor Fletcher, are you ready? Okay. We have about 4 subgroups of quality. So this is just the first one. Then we're going to get... Yes. Okay, so Chairman says I should give you 5 minutes. What? So you have 5 minutes.
Okay, so I have 5 minutes and I have 6 slides. And on each slide I've got 30. So that's 180. And I have 5 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to use 36 seconds for every slide.
Okay.
That's great. No, wait. Okay. Well, our presentation is on education quality provision, senior high school, and the subtopic is integrating sustainable development. So I can't get it here. Oh, okay. Well, it makes life easier for me. So you're not going to see my slide, but I'll promise you that I'll be very, very quick. Okay, so yes, so the first thing, what we've done is that we looked at a number of questions, and we have actually provided like recommendations. So we have a question, then we have an issue, and then we provide recommendations. In some cases, we provide 3 recommendations. In some cases, we provide 2. Okay, so I'll do this very quickly. Now, the first one says, what are the challenges in ensuring universal access to secondary education? And we saw the challenges as funding, infrastructure, and learning materials. So these are the issues or challenges. And our first recommendation is ring-fence a percentage of Ghana's oil revenue to support free senior high school. Second is what? Give PTA the opportunity to support education. And so the point is we have 2 recommendations. One says ring-fence a percentage of Ghana's oil revenue to support free SHS. What that means is that nobody pays anything. It continues as it is, but find the money using oil money. But the second one says give PTA the opportunity to support education. I think we were advised to give 2, 3 recommendations and then choose the most preferred one. So when I'm giving the recommendations in that order, the first one I read is the most preferred, and of course we have the others. The second one is infrastructural challenges, and again there we have 3 recommendations. Infrastructure challenges, we have resource e-blocks and make them disability friendly. I mean, we have a lot of e-blocks that were built which are not in use, and so it's very important for us to make use of these e-blocks, but make sure that they are well resourced and made disability friendly. Then number 2, embark upon emergency provision of infrastructure focusing on deprived schools. I think the idea here is that if we could get every secondary school in this country to the level of a category A school, there will be no problem. We will have 705 category A schools, and people will actually live where they are, stay where they are, and have a secondary education. Because we don't have that, we have a few schools that are oversubscribed, and everybody wants to go to these schools. So I think the recommendation here is that we make sure that we provide infrastructure, particularly to deprived schools, so that we get, all secondary schools in this country are reasonably well resourced, so that people will probably stay where they are. And so the first time they will probably, move out of home or from the parents will be when they go to tertiary institution or go university. Resource also, especially, I've said that. Then from access, we also had quality. Now, the questions here are, what are the gaps in teacher training and professional development? And we identify the gaps as lack of linkages between teacher education programs and school programs. Sometimes it's very difficult to get the alignment. So teachers complete a program in a university or teacher education institution, and then they go to the school, and they haven't got an clear idea of what is it that they're supposed to do in school. So you realize that they learn a lot of theory, but the alignment is not there. And so here we are saying that align the relevant teacher education curriculum with the school curriculum. The interesting thing is, especially with this, and also when we come to curriculum, I've realized that a lot of the things that we are recommending here, the new curriculum has taken care of those things. And people say, okay, fine, put it there so that it's emphasized. So the idea is that some of the things I'm going to say, the new curriculum is already doing those things, but we will say them nevertheless, so that when the report comes out, it would say that, okay, some of the things are going on, or some of the things are happening, and those that are not happening, we have to add. Involve senior high schools in the recruitment of teachers into schools. Now, apparently, senior high schools are not involved in this. Teachers are simply sent to them from the center, and this is one of the reasons why, because that happens, the secondary school heads are not in a position to actually understand how the people who have actually completed the programs understand the secondary school system. So I think it's important to involve them in the recruitment, when even it comes to interviews and stuff like that. Then, also we identify gaps in teacher professional development, also from that question, and the recommendation is progressively increase teacher professional development allowance. And we know at the moment teachers are given 1,200 cedis professional development allowance, and that in a way is not adequate in present. So it's important for us to think about increasing this progressively. Then also teachers need also support. Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Progressively increase. Provide effective classroom management and supervision to teachers, and provide support for teachers to do formative and regular assessment. Assessment is very key, and so teachers need that support to do that. Then we move on to the curriculum. Now, as I say here, all the things I'm going to say the new curriculum is doing, and I don't know why I should say them, but I will say them nevertheless, because people want me to say them. So, for example, it says, how can the curriculum better integrate STEM, 21st century skills, AI, and relevant cultural values? Now, that's exactly what the new curriculum is doing. The new curriculum is a learner-centered curriculum, which is actually trying to develop or helping students develop these 21st century skills, ICT skills, and so on. And so, even though the recommendation here is resource all schools to run STEM-related programs, I think if you look at the curriculum, every school is encouraged to do not necessarily a STEM program, but STEM related. The entire curriculum is STEM based. So that is answers. Then we have a new one who says integrate safety and risk management in the curriculum. And I think it's very important because sometimes there are things that we need, especially safety is key, and safeguarding and so on. So one of the things, the new thing that I've seen today is actually integrating safety, but all of them I've seen. Then another question is, how can the implementation of curriculum meet the needs of all learners? Exactly, this curriculum has answered that question. But here we have said, make all schools inclusive in terms of infrastructure and access to the study of STEM-related subjects, and varied, equitable, transparent assessment strategies. This is exactly what the new curriculum is prescribing. So luckily, for the curriculum, the new curriculum has covered that. So I'll quickly move on to something else. So I'm going to move on to, he's giving me 2 minutes. I have 1 minute now to do that. Now, again, inclusive practice. Again, it says, how can education system promote inclusive practice for diverse learners? Again, this curriculum, the new curriculum, makes provision for that. However, we are saying make provision for every learner to achieve their full potential. That's exactly what the curriculum says. Teachers should employ very pedagogical and assessment strategies. That's exactly what the curriculum says. Provide assistive devices for learners with special needs. That's exactly what the curriculum says. So we are repeating what the curriculum is saying. Okay. So I'll quickly move on to leadership, and then I'll stop. Now, what challenges are associated with effective school leadership practices?
Thank you so much. Let's give it to him once again. Not ready. Okay. So let's invite infrastructure. Infrastructure.
I think 10 minutes. We gave the others 20 minutes. I was timing. We have it on PowerPoint, and I think this.
How many subjects?
I think there are about 5. It's about infrastructure, Chairman. All right. Let's go. But it's not our slide. Let's go on. This is just a picture. Right, so the team, we had a presentation yesterday by the Get Fund boss, and that set the tone for our discussion. So we look at it from a basic education perspective, and then secondary and tertiary. So what are the key problems? Inadequate school infrastructure. We still hear issues of existence of schools in under trees. This is something that's common knowledge. Then we have inadequate support by stakeholders in communities and corporate entities. And then poor timely maintenance that leads to deterioration of existing school infrastructure. We also have issues on water, sanitation, and changing room facilities, which are non-existent in the schools. We have inadequate infrastructure to support early childhood education. We know that if you go around public schools, we do not have these ones around, so they are very limited. We are very much aware of that. Non-compliance for the catchment area policy of 5-kilometer distance and the provision of school infrastructure. There's a policy that kids should walk 5 kilometers, but you find that will also be another issue. They have to, some are going 10, 20 kilometers. Limited inclusion of special education learners in digital learning infrastructure planning, unavailability of climate resilience policy. Let's go. Roll it up. That's for the basic education level. We can move to secondary school. Who is controlling? I have only 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But it's just preliminary. It's not part of the time. Listing the problems. Secondary. So if you go to the secondary, you notice that we have issues also on the same infrastructure thing, lack of dormitories, classrooms, and critically is teacher accommodation and administrative blocks. I've just been told that what they are now doing with the dining halls is that it's multi-purpose. You can have it for your food as well as for ensemble purpose and so on. But some schools don't have it. I've seen students standing in the sun to eat somewhere. Inadequate furniture, beds, laboratory equipment, and consumables are cases in most of the secondary schools. Limited inclusion of special education learners in digital learning, infrastructure planning. We plan infrastructure, but we don't take into consideration special needs. Infrastructure project planning does not consider environmental factors. The setup of some classrooms do not promote digital learning. They are in such a manner that they are not flexible to adapt to digital learning. Project management and procurement processes stall implementation of Get Fund projects. Duration of projects are long. You will go around the secondary schools, you see projects that are dotted all around, some 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in the secondary schools. Many stalled projects that have. Let's go to tertiary level. So these are some of the key problems that are happening in the secondary schools. If you get to the tertiary space, we have lack of well-equipped resource centers to support virtual learning. If you look at the university space, some are better than others. The same thing, you come to colleges, you go to technical universities, you have the same similar problems. Inadequate student residential facilities. In the colleges of education, where precisely I belong to, is a very critical issue. In fact, we still have what we call dormitories and not what we call hostels. They are old dormitories, which we came from the secondary school, pre-tertiary level. So the infrastructure does not support what you call residential facilities. Limited inclusion of special education learners in digital. I have said that at the pre-tertiary level, it is the same thing in the tertiary level. They are in the schools, tertiary universities and colleges, but we haven't made provisions for them. Inadequate specialized resource persons to take care of them. And then inadequate skill training centers for technical universities. You have a university that's agric bias. They are training people as to how to farm, but they are doing that in a classroom. They themselves don't have a farm somewhere where they can take the student for practical work. You ask yourself, what kind of skills are they going to come and do? They may come and be harvesting the crops rather than weeding to protect them. So what are the key recommendations from this group? One, the government should collaborate more effectively with local assemblies to enhance school infrastructure development, particularly in the rural areas. What we are saying is that some communities are motivated themselves to construct schools or build schools. We need to have a collaborative approach to that. Two, Get Fund. I think that point has been echoed here by the other groups. The Get Funds to be on cap to make provisions for room for more infrastructure to be provided. If we have that leverage, we can do more. Governments should also collaborate with traditional authorities to assist with the securing of adequate funding for school infrastructure. I think it links up with two. Systems should be put in place to provide schools with virtual labs that would inherently reduce cost and increase access. Point is, it is becoming increasingly difficult to have physical infrastructure labs constructed. So if we invest and invest well, and I hope the Get Fund administrator was around here, we can all, one, it will be possible for all of us, wherever you are, to access it. And then two, the cost of doing our physical maintenance is not something you need again. So we can look at that. All school infrastructure projects at basic and SHA levels should include a provision for teacher accommodation. Most of the schools, you find out, especially even at the basic level, there's no teacher accommodation. So teachers will have to travel far. Sometimes they live in the towns, then they are not effective on the ground. So if you are constructing any new school, why don't you also include accommodation for teachers? That will help us. All school infrastructure projects are the basic, 6, establish standard criteria for setting up schools in the communities. Most communities, some communities, when you go, you notice that there are only about 4 or 5 households. There's a school that's nearby, but they're also saying they need a school. Unfortunately, you have the MP, for some reason, if he's looking for some votes, he said, we'll build you a school. Then they pick it up, but they forgot that that was a campaign message. It's not a real one. So we have to have a criteria where we can, because when that happens, the problem is how do we support them? And we can see them dotted around the country. 7, conduct thorough infrastructure audit at all levels of the educational system to provide data to guide infrastructure provisions. Maybe that data might exist somewhere, but the group thinks that we do not actually have a clear database to say, okay, get fund infrastructure, these are dormitory or residential facilities at the secondary school, at the universities. If we don't have that, we will keep on putting up certain structures when they already exist. So promote self-help community projects to support education infrastructure. We should be able to promote communities to do this. 9, infrastructure provisions should be pyramid. What we mean by this is that while we have the view that at the base, that's the basic level of primary, that's where more efforts should be. You can go to secondary school, then as you go to universities, we don't want to put percentages, but we are thinking most should be at the base, then at the middle, and then to the top. Ensure provisions of school kitchen, changing room facilities, and washrooms at the basic and secondary school levels. I think I mentioned this. 11, credit scores should accrue to corporate entities that support education infrastructure, which credit scores would translate into incentives. It could be tax relief, it could be something else. I think that has been articulated in the earlier groups. That to ensure public-private participation. 12 is on special needs, integrate special education learners into ICT and digital learning incentives, and to enhance accessibility for learners with special needs. Conduct disability audit for existing schools to ensure disability compliance. Most of the schools do not have disability support for them. And then governments should provide TVET schools with workshops and tools and retooling existing workplace. I think the TVET, Robin said that very well. We are only supporting in this proposal. Furniture, promotes recycling of plastic waste into durable furniture. Plastic waste can be converted into furniture. We should look at it. It will help us. Now we said decentralize the production of furniture. Again, it ties in with what the TVET group said. We think that if you allow the TVET institutions to produce them at the local level, they will produce quality ones that can help us solve this lack of furniture in schools. So that is to them. So we set a clear point. TVET schools should progressively be empowered to become centers for furniture production. I think I've seen that. I come from Bolga and I've seen Bolgatanga Technical Institute. That's where we produce our furniture. If you want, they can do it much more stronger than what they bring from outside. So the TVET schools can take it up. Virtual learning environment, compose a harmonized team of experts to create interactive, here, 1 minute, to develop an appropriate network or access point, digital platforms, and device to support STEM education in Ghana. We talk about STEM, we are thinking of, we have to have a team that can do that. Then 20, we must be, content must be interactive and designed in a specific way to communicate thought finding transferred. Yeah. So what we are saying is to have our content, we have to think about that. I think the group, we have one expert from who's into ICT, explain that sometimes the content that we have is not helpful. We need to look at it and design it much better for ourselves. I think you can go on to the last, but the rest are, okay. So connectivity matters, device usage, locally available materials to teach them is what we're also recommending strongly. Offer private cloud hosting instead of government-owned storage to mitigate data loss in that space. Government should have a clear plan or policy for provision of ICT infrastructure in schools. As we stand now, I was asking, we asked whether there's a policy on ICT. It's still being developed. We need to have that to see how we can leverage on that. I'm almost done. Last one, very good. So revise government policy or device usage in schools and create clear distancing between communication, digitization, and education digitization. What we are saying here is that sometimes when you have issues about education issues, they send you to Minister of Communication. We are talking about education issues. What kind of digital information do we need in education? So there need to be some collaboration at that level to see what exactly we need. I'll read the last one, then you can take over your mic. Go on, please, to the last point. Sustainability of infrastructure. Implement effective monitoring mechanism for Government of Ghana project, particularly GET Fund, to guarantee timely completion and reduce costs. Okay? So the last one, 33. Prioritize services. This infrastructure, I think we are sitting in an infrastructure.
Yes.
Not so.
Yes.
All right,
This
so I think we'll make
done.
them available.
Yes.
I wish we had more time, but let me mention the team members.
Oh.
No. The moderators. The moderators.
The
moderators will have Prof. Kwamizu and then Prof. Mohammed Salfu. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We'll make the presentation available. But if we're giving it to you, you have to pay anyway for stopping us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please, let's give them a round of applause. That's a wonderful work done. So we want to continue with the quality education. We will take the next 2 sessions, then we take research. So shall we receive? Yes, please, you have 10 minutes. So the next quality education group to get ready after him, after Prof, then we take that one too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you and good afternoon. I'll try to be very fast. We have some few slides we'll show. So, right, these are the team members. We are 30 plus members in the quality. We looked at KG, primary, and JHS. Daniel there helped, and myself, and we put it together with a rapporteur. This is not very clear, but these are the questions we looked at. We were giving access, teacher quality, curriculum, inclusion, and leadership, and each area had questions. So in the outline of the presentation, we will take each area and then come out with their recommendation or reforms needed. So inclusion and access is the first one. When we're discussing, the issues seem to dovetail into each other. Then teacher quality, curriculum, and pedagogy reforms, infrastructure and learning environment, and then leadership. So we go to the first one, and when talking about inclusion, we had issues about inadequate teaching and learning facilities, what Prof. Tinton was talking about, poor classroom environment, lack of infrastructure for special needs education, the need for psychologically supportive school design. We talk of limited digital infrastructure and insufficient facilities for STEM. And there are many more, but to address them, we made some recommendations for policy reform. And some come under structural reform, and you would see maybe the need to establish some kind of basic education access commission to coordinate issues of inclusive education initiatives, and then create and strengthen regional special education resource centers, and develop district-level early identification and intervention systems. And in terms of policy reform, we talked about mandate inclusive design in all new school constructions, institute flexible attendance policies for special circumstances. And under that, it came about some children, out-of-school children, never enrolled, dropouts. In some communities, the coverage is not very wide, so there's a need to introduce a kind of flexibility in the engagement time for them so that they can stay in school. And also the way the pedagogy integrates them, they are not able to stay in school when they are brought in. Then establishment of minimum standards for assistive technology in schools to support inclusion, and then the development of emergency response protocols focusing on CEL and DRR. And then we talked also about implementation strategies as part of the reform. They need to create mobile assessment units for rural areas in particular, implement a digital tracking system for out-of-school children, expand school feeding to include JHS. It came up in the discussion. That is, if school feeding is going to continue, and then deploy special education specialists to cluster of schools so that they'll be there to support them. Then come to teacher quality. The group looked at the low assessment literacy among teachers, and teachers not having much digital skills, poor classroom management skills, limited special needs education training in the teacher training programs. We talked about inadequate multilingual teaching capabilities. In some communities, particularly at the early grade level, the classrooms are heavily homogenized in terms of linguistics, and some teachers can only teach in one language, so there's a need to look at that. Then most teachers seem to be using outdated teaching methods, and that needs to be reviewed so that they can run some recommendations for that. We categorize them under preparation reforms. They need to touch some aspects of the teacher training curriculum to address most of the issues we identified, including play-based learning throughout special needs education. And on special needs education, the group talked about it in two ways. We need the inclusive classroom. All teachers should have some hand in special needs education to be able to handle some of the hidden special needs that are in the classroom that ordinary teachers will not be seeing, but they should be trained to know how to identify them. Then the special schools cases in particular also, we should train teachers for that. Then professional development, the discussion focused on instituting a system in place for the licensure so that it will feed into both getting the license and getting the renewal of the license, and then create mandatory mentorship programs and establish school-based professional learning communities and implement performance-based license renewals. And we move to issues of assessment and accountability in the teacher education or teacher quality. We talked of development of teacher performance metrics, creating student feedback mechanisms. It appears students don't really talk on how teachers, what is going on in the classroom, especially at the lower levels. Then implement annual teacher appraisals and establish a peer review systems in the schools. We move to curriculum. Some of the issues in curriculum, we have, it came up in the discussion that we have some kind of unregulated supplementary curricula running in the system. We have different NGOs and civil society group, different curriculum, sometimes in the same school or in the same district. And if group A, NGO A is going to supervise, the teachers will pull whatever they've given them to teach for them to see, and when they leave, they drop it and pick the group B's structure. There's a need for either NACA, NASIA, or the appropriate agencies working with GES to regulate what is happening. Also, the group talked about KG education needing reforms. And then it came that the TVET part at the lower end is not really captured in. There's a need to find a way to start bringing it in. We remember in the past, I think art and craft time, students were doing some kind of TVET things that they were scored marks and things. So the group discussed something about that. We need to consider that. Then the weak language policy. Now let's look at the reforms. The group talked about, the group talked about content reform and then assessment reform. And there are a lot of subs under that, which the final report will highlight. It also has implementation strategies for the reform, then infrastructure. And this touched heavily on what Professor Tinton was presenting on infrastructure. We're in different rooms, but we seem to be discussing similar and same things. We need infrastructure for special needs, and also limited digital infrastructure, insufficient facilities for STEM education. I think a group visited us and demonstrated some STEM education stuff for the group to see that you don't even need a big lab to do that. And we have recommendations for the infrastructure, both the physical and the digital. And then we talked about the learning resources, at least we need to develop some kind of standardized classroom equipment list and create mobile resource units, establish libraries, implement smart classrooms with technology. Let's see how we can leverage on virtual classrooms to support learning. The last part is on leadership. We saw weak supervision chain, limited leadership training for head teachers, insufficient administrator involvement at the district and regional level, lack of clear teacher performance metrics, limited student voice in teacher appraisal, and weak oversight of complementary education programs with the mainstream system. Many more, and then we brought some reforms or recommendations for leadership, administrative reforms, and also accountability systems as part of the reform. Now, from all this, it made that the community was not engaged. It wasn't part of our questions to answer, but we found out that in some instances, communities need to be involved. On that note, I say thank you.
And they having to travel from the colleges of education to where they are teaching, motivating them, providing adequate transportation for them so that they will go on time and come back in time. There was also the issue of their schedules. Those who go in such numbers that they often encumber the schools which are receiving them. And it was planned that if it can be looked at again, it will help. Infrastructure for tertiary lecturers and professors too was also looked at. And in that, I was surprised to find out that many lecturers don't even have offices. I was surprised in this country. So lecturers should have offices where they do their work, and so that it streamlines their output. We also looked at allowances for extra work that they do, because most of these tertiary institutions in the country have so much admissions of students that sometimes they are overwhelmed and they have to do long hours and long marking of very many scripts. So they have to be remunerated for that appropriately. We also looked at areas like the concentration of access, where some of these facilities, students get admission all right, but they leave for the security services, for instance, because they are not in a position to foot the bills of these facilities, these educational facilities which they have gained admissions to. So they go to the army or police, and it's expected that government will find a way to keep them there by providing one way or the other some motivation there for them to remain in these facilities. Then we also looked at how to, at the same time, encourage enrollment, and if we could put up more facilities for the teacher training colleges, for instance, especially, then they will be able to admit more people like the regular universities. The teacher training colleges also face a unique challenge in that because they are doing only teacher training, many students feel like it's some kind of second-class tertiary institution, so they don't want to go there. This, in addition to the fact that it will be desirable for them to admit students, protocol students from the areas, the areas that the schools are situated. It will be better if they are allowed to run other courses, especially courses related to education, so that those who want or gain admission to these colleges but do not want to teach can also be admitted to these same tertiary schools. Others suggested that although these tertiary schools may specialize, they still have to provide courses in other fields to students who come there. One of the highlights that we looked at was lecturers getting overburdened and overwhelmed with coursework. That is the amount of work they are doing without adequate remuneration. Then also, it was suggested that the government should provide continual increment in the budgetary allocation for office and facilities, so that if at the start of this program they are providing, let's say, 1% of the educational budget to that, then we know that in successive years it's going to go to 5 or 6%. That way, we know that even if 1 year is not good enough, successive years will cover up or will be better. Then lastly, that I'm presenting here is how we lag behind when it comes to technology and AI in teaching. So we should learn to teach facilitators so that they are able to use computers, internet, and phone technology in teaching and learning. This will help to reach more people and more content. Then another way is to allow, if we can, especially the SHS students to start using phones, not in the classrooms, but on the campuses, so that by the time they reach tertiary, they are more adept with it. Those of us who are on the grounds have realized that in some of our secondary schools, we allow foreigners who have come here to study to use phones, for instance, in the secondary schools, but we black people, Ghanaians, are not allowed to use phones. I don't want to mention names of particular secondary schools, but it's going on, and it's very disheartening. You don't even know who to blame or where to start from. So that is it's a very pain. It's not the only one that blacks are being discriminated to in our own country, but it's a very conspicuous one. To end it all, I will remind all of us that whatever we are discussing here, technocrats are doing it, recommending for other technocrats. But from Black Empowerment, I would suggest that we ensure that if we are producing the right things and the certification and the examination system is in place.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Shall we receive the research theme? The research team, the presenter, and the engine room. Could you please project? Okay. Please, let's receive him.
My friend, he said 10 minutes, but this is the most important session, and we are not a sub group of infrastructure. So kindly bear with us. Oh, that's generous. Okay, we were to look at research evidence for decision making. As I intimated earlier, we think that our group presents the most important element that influences the rest of the sessions. We started our work by recalling some elements of the keynote speeches that we received yesterday. Particularly, we note that you can undertake any meaningful teaching if you don't research and gather adequate data. Otherwise, what are we teaching? We also realize that there is need for us to have a development paradigm, a philosophy that guides what we research and teach in our schools. So we know the value of research, we know the value of data to help us to produce knowledge. But knowledge about what? It should be knowledge about our world, about ourselves, our environment, and what it will take to move this nation forward. So we had 5 major issues that were to attend to. The first one has 3 major questions. How can education data be more accessible for stakeholders to enhance policy accountability? We're also to look at ways in which the Ghana Education Service, TVET service, and school management committees, teachers, and tertiary institutions can leverage data to enhance teaching, learning, and management practices. Our recommendations include the following: that we should first establish research units across all education levels and agencies. Each institution must have a research unit. Each must have a research unit to ensure continuous learning and data-driven decision making. The units would systematically collect, classify, analyze data, and track the impact of education policies and interventions in their schools. This could include or could involve longitudinal research processes and data gathering processes. The second recommendation is that we should improve data integration between student placement and school information systems. We should have a unified data management system that will allow seamless transfer of student records from the computerized school selection and placement system to SIS without requiring manual entry. Schools should retain access to relevant student details to improve administrative efficiency. Our third recommendation is to develop an open access education data dashboard. We have some dashboards existing today, but access to the information there is quite limited. So we are recommended that we have a publicly accessible dashboard, which will be created to visualize key education data from GES, TVET service, and GSS. This platform will enhance transparency and allow stakeholders to leverage data for research, policy making, and school management, while safeguarding sensitive information. Our second issue is how we strengthen the role of research and tertiary institutions to support Ghana's education transformation agenda. Our recommendations, 3 recommendations we're asked to provide. The first one is to clarify and communicate the government's education transformation agenda. What is the education transformation agenda? That has to be clarified and shared. So we are recommending that the government should articulate a clear and structured education agenda, ensuring that research and tertiary institutions understand national priorities and align their work accordingly. We also recommend the establishment of a stakeholder committee to develop a research agenda. A structured stakeholder committee should be formed to bring together government agencies, tertiary institutions, research bodies, and also industry players. This committee would help define priority areas, ensuring that studies generate data that directly support policy and implementation. The third recommendation here is to strengthen and expand the education sector research group. We have an education sector research group that is already gathering and archiving data. We are recommending that we strengthen this group to improve how they coordinate with other agencies. It should be expanded to regularly engage with institutions, align research efforts with the education strategic plan, and issue calls for proposals to generate targeted research that informs education policy and decision making. Our second issue there is how can research and development institutions, tertiary institutions, better support government's education transformation agenda? Another question is how can the proposed National Research Fund be operationalized? We recommend that, just a second. We recommend here that we should constitute the research fund, a research fund board and administrative structures. Now that one is given. Once the research fund is operationalized, we believe that a board will be established, a 9-member board according to the statutes, including the chairperson, the fund administrator, and so on and so forth. But we also recommended the formation of a search committee to ensure that qualified individuals are selected for these positions, the positions on this board, not just based on political expediency, but based on expertise and competence. We also recommend that we should leverage existing research groups and agenda. Instead of starting from the scratch or reinventing the wheel, the National Research Fund should align with existing research groups, such as the SRIM, Directorate Research Agenda, to build on current efforts rather than duplicate them. We also recommended that we should define our national research priorities. Ghana should establish clear research priorities, ensuring that funding is directed towards studies that address critical national development needs. The next issue is how can the proposed National Research Fund be operationalized? We have quick recommendations there. We are recommending that we pre-allocate funds across sectors. The fund should have a predefined allocation framework to ensure balanced support for TVET, tertiary education, and other priority sectors. A colleague mentioned non-formal, but here it has been given a new Christian name. But we shouldn't forget the non-formal sector as well as part of the educational reform process. I want to do this so as to prevent disproportionate funding and ensure that underrepresented areas such as TVET and foundational education research receive adequate support. We recommend the implementation of performance-based disbursement system. Research funding should be delivered in phases, with payments tied to the successful completion of project milestones. We have similar things happening in our tertiary institutions, and we must leverage on what is being done there. We also recommend that we should leverage existing university grants models for best practices. Many universities have already have structured research fund management systems across the country, and rather than creating something new, we should learn from them and then fish out the best practice that would guide us at the national level. Issue 3, how can data be efficiently managed to improve the computerized school selection and placement system? We recommend that we should enhance data verification and cleaning processes. Before placements are finalized, a thorough data validation process should be implemented to eliminate inconsistencies, errors, and missing information. This should involve collaboration between the Ghana Education Service and the West African Examination Council and schools. We should develop a real-time tracking and appeals system. This requires the establishment of a user-friendly platform to allow students, parents, and school administrators to track placement records, verify school assignments, and submit appeals where necessary. This would improve transparency and reduce placement disputes. We also recommend, in this regard, that we should integrate predictive analytics for better placements. Machine learning models can be leveraged to analyze past placement trends, student performances, and school capacity to improve placement accuracy. Sometimes students are sent to schools without due consideration of their capacity to hold the students. So many students are overflooded with, many schools are overflooded with students, and you see them packing their boxes on the corridors and becoming very vulnerable to those little animals that don't need visa from Ashama to Accra, mosquitoes. The next issue we looked at is issue 4. How can the information and data management system of the Ministry of Education and its agencies be improved to offer more comprehensive, inclusive, relevant, credible, and timely data for policy management? Our recommendations: we should conduct a comprehensive data audit. That means that we should assess the existing educational data landscape to determine what is available, its credibility, and any additional data needs. This should include evaluating whether passive data sources such as school attendance and PTA contributions are systematically captured. The issue of PTA contribution is important. Parents contribute to the development of schools, but we don't have any statistics or any data with regard to how much the PTAs are contributing to the schools. We need to capture that. We should establish regular information sharing frameworks between Ministry of Education and tertiary institutions. Now, our final issue we looked at is how can education sector data be improved to incorporate indicators related to, 2 minutes, okay, thank you. Indicators related to persons with disabilities, deprived schools, inclusive and complementary education. How can real-time data be used to address disparities? Now, finally, our final recommendations. We recommend that we harmonize existing models and link with other systems for tracking marginalized learners. The Ministry of Education should link its existing data systems to other national databases to track changes in student status over time. We also recommend that we should define key indicators for real-time monitoring, a structured framework that will determine which education indicators should be tracked in real time. This could include student attendance, disability status updates, teacher shortages, school infrastructural gaps to enable timely policy responses. Finally, we recommend that we have real-time education data that is free and accessible. The government should invest in a sustainable model that makes real-time data freely available to schools and policymakers. I can see my friend coming close, and we are saying that we could leverage some of the units that already exist. For example, the unit that track elections. They are very efficient. Okay, the last election we had, before midnight, we knew we had real-time information as to who was going to win, who was not going to win. And this, we could leverage on that to support our school systems. On that note,
wonderful.
Thanks for your patience.
Let's give it up for Prof. And let's receive the chair to give his closing remarks on this session. With a round of applause, please.
Organizers, can I suggest that in future conference of this nature, you have more than one interpreter? Having said that, thank you. Having said that, under the exigencies that we are operating currently, it's becoming increasingly incumbent that we cannot interrogate the committees in a manner that we originally sought to do. Consequently, I'm devising a strategy where if you think that there are points of clarification, I would welcome just about 5 points of clarification. The issue is if we have to question, we'll be doing another hour. Would that be okay for all of us? Even as we sit, given our age ranges, we are very tired and suffering from swelling feet. And so, on that note, I'll open the floor for just points of further clarification. And let me conclude. The point of clarification will not go beyond a minute. And I deserve the right to politely cut you off if you're exceeding your time. If we agree on this housekeeping, then we set the ball rolling. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I would like to begin by congratulating all the people who presented up there. Very good. But I belong to a group that I wasn't very happy with the person who presented for our group. I belong to the quality education group, especially on the higher education. Okay. Yeah. And the last person who gave the comment, he didn't respect our opinions. We gave a set of recommendations. One of them was about the need, on the question of how we can improve, STEM education. Each of us, most of us, all of us in the group suggested that we should use our indigenous Ghanaian languages for education in this wise. But he was the only person who refused, who opposed it. He refused to represent that. So my suggestion is that it is not fair. So I think that in the final analysis, we should have that opinion and several other opinions he didn't represented. Thank you very much.
Very well. Professor, you know what? For what you said, we are welcoming recommendations as well. Yeah. And so we are happy to receive your recommendation as a result of that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make 2 points. One, the first person who made the presentation on regulation made mention that they identified one regulator for the tertiary space. I think that is not correct. Under the Education Regulatory Bodies Act, Act 1023, it establishes the Commission for Technical and Vocational Education and that of GTech. The Commission has the mandate to accredit all technical institutions, the universities, and their programs, whilst the mother institution, which is GTech, is to ensure that they exist as tertiary education. So these are the two commissions that are regulating our institutions at the tertiary level. But the Commission for TVET also has a mandate to regulate all TVET institutions from tertiary to, from pre-tertiary to tertiary. No, under the regulation, Education Regulatory Bodies Act, Act 1023, it established two commissions, Commission for TVET and GTech, that's Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. They also made a recommendation that the Pre-Tertiary Act, Act 1049, should be reviewed. And under that, they said that we should reintroduce the assembly training centers. Let me throw a bit of light on this, and it's very important. What led to the establishment or the passage of Pre-Tertiary Act? Before that was passed, the skill gap that was conducted identified that there were over 9 ministries all running some form of TVET programs. And there were 19, very good. And they were all issuing their own certificate. The standards were not the same. Some of them, the nomenclatures were different. Some will be doing electrical installation work. Some will be doing electrical technology, electrical engineering. But if you go underneath it, whatever they were doing, they were the same. But the nomenclature is different. So the Act brought all of them from various ministries to Ministry of Education so that there will be 2 agencies to regulate Ghana education at the pre-tertiary level. Currently, we have Ghana Education Service, which has a mandate to manage only grammar education, and then the technical aspect has been taken away from GES, and the new agency was established called Ghana TVET Service. And all those TVET institutions from various ministries have been put under TVET Service. So we have these 2 agencies that are managing the pre-tertiary education in the country. So these are the clarities. And this, I think this act is so important because it gives that clarity. It provides quality and it gives clear direction for a Ghanaian child. Before, when a child, a Ghanaian school child wants to go to tertiary and you decide to go through TVET, you finish your intermediate and you have to write English, math, science, and all those kominini. The new act brought all those institutions under the Ministry of Education, and all the core subjects have been added to all the trade programs that they do. So going through TVET today, you do math, science, English, just as those who go through the grammar way to get to the tertiary. When they complete 3 years, they will write National Certificate 2, and then those who go through the WAEC, the normal grammar education, will write WAEC exams, WASI, after 3 years, and they meet at the tertiary to study for a tertiary program. The advantage a TVET graduate has is that at that level, he has 2 opportunities, either to go horizontal or vertical. He can decide to go to the field, the industry to work because he's got the skills, or decide to further upward. So that is the the importance of the Pre-Tertiary Act, which separated the 2 educational systems, the grammar way and then the technical way. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Shall we take one from here?
Yeah, thank you. I have the mic. Please, I have the mic. Okay,
Please, we'll come there. The chairman is directing towards here, so I will come here, please.
No, on TVET, I want to make a proposal. I think that will also go to the finance, education financing team. Is it possible to also have business and marketing units really attached to the TVET institutions, so that even though they are learning, there is also a commercial aspect, because already some of them are producing things that it's serving as an IGF for the institutions. So I think if this is there, it needs to be strengthened and be something that all the institutions have it as part of their program. So that's a proposal that I'm making. Thank you. Right.
Okay, thank you. Please, can I? Okay.
Just a very short recommendation on, okay. So a very short recommendation on TVET education. I want to suggest if TVET training could include caregiving as a profession. I'm talking about caregiving in programs like elderly care, child care, disability support, and home health care. There are no training institutions in Ghana that specializes in that. And if we can place this under TVET, caregivers under TVET programs will acquire essential skills such as communication and interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence and empathy, among others, and also create employment for a lot of the youth who are needed in this. I keep saying caregiving is becoming a very essential cornerstone in jobs, because it's the only thing that AI will not be able to replace. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm the National Vice President of Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations. I'm asking a series of questions based on disability issues, and there are 5. Some are contribution. 1, I want to find out when the new inclusive education policy or curriculum will be implemented so persons with disability can be comfortable in the classroom. That's my first question. 2, I want to find out what budget allocation, because from our research from the education sector, we realize that the budget for special education is lumped up with the general budget, and due to that, special education issues are not taken seriously. 3, we want to appeal to the research bodies that anytime they are carrying out research work, they should make it a point that they will include disability issues as part of the research programs that they are having, so we can have adequate data for proper planning for inclusive disability education and other policy documents. Four, how will you ensure that the teaching and learning materials sent to the various schools have assistive device and are disability friendly to persons with disability? We realize, especially in the basic schools, that children with disability are suffering. The textbooks and the gadgets and the equipment that we send to the various schools are not disability friendly, and children are left out there, not able to be integrated, even though we are practicing inclusive education. 5, how can we ensure that all children with disabilities, as my sister already said, in the TVET, are also captured in the free, not only the, what they call it, TVET, but all children with disability, whether they went through the JSS or not, because we have cases of children who weren't sent to school. Just recently, I went and discovered a 17-year-old boy who was locked up who couldn't attend school, this child will be sent to a rehabilitation center. Unfortunately, we realize that when those children are sent to the rehabilitation center, they are not catered for like their brothers and sisters who don't have disability, who are given free education, and to us it's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. And mine is a very short one. There was a presentation here, and I think that's a misrepresentation, that the colleges of education are suffering to get candidates. It is no, because we operate what we call centralized application system, CAPS, and we have more than what we can take. This year alone, what we have admitted is less than 20%. Almost 80% are going away. So colleges, they are oversubscribed. So, Prof. Bodomo, thank you. I think your presenter, he has to check his facts.
Okay, let me do a point. I think we've done very good presentations and we've made very important points. I realized that we're focusing a lot more on the hardware drivers, and some of the soft factors were not highlighted enough. And one of them that I really want us to think about and include in the recommendations is discipline in our schools. And when I talk about discipline, I'm referring to a broader category of different items: absenteeism, sexual harassment, and all those things that constitute school indiscipline. And that has resulted in us not achieving or focusing on the real issues of improving learning outcomes. I think that we have not talked a lot about that, and I just want us to recognize that it is one important factor that is not allowing us to improve on the quality of education in our basic schools, senior high schools, and if I don't fear, the tertiary sector too. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Shall we receive divine?
All right, thank you. I start with quality. Prof. Fletcher made very good points that we need to expand infrastructure in other secondary schools so that they can be of good quality. He also tried to link it to a way of reducing pressure on some of these high schools. Yes, that's correct, but to a very limited extent. My experience in the space indicates that there are some category B or even C schools that have very good infrastructure, but yes, students are not selecting them. And therefore, and the reason is basically because we have given them the democracy to select their school. You are giving a free senior high school, and again, they have the will to select where they want to go to. So even if you expand infrastructure and you have improved it to a very high quality standard, still, because of some of the names some of these schools have, those still prefer to go to those schools. So I feel there's a need for us to get to the point where we do away with this democracy of you saying that this is the school I want to go, and then you are going to, government should reserve the right to post you to or send you to wherever school government feels that you need to, so that we can decongest our school. Otherwise, you can improve infrastructure, but the democracy will only help you. Number two, on TVET, we also have to consider doing away with the costing model of the free senior high school to also finance free TVET. What I noticed over the years that the only difference between the free senior high school financing and then that of the free TVET is just an average of 150 Ghana cedis. But TVET is capital intensive, so we have to look at the costing model for the implementation of the free senior high. And finally, data also has to be available on MEs on expenditure. The opaque nature of education expenditure is not helping accountability. And if you want to promote efficiency, how resources are used, I think the MEs also be expanded to capture data on education expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we receive Mr. Jetwa?
Thank you very much. I want to touch on the relationship between the ministry and private education. They, at 778, gave birth to the relationship between the private education and the ministry at section 27. But if you look at the current act that we use, both the Education Regulatory Act and the Pre-Tertiary Education Act, that relationship has been expunged. And I will recommend that for the greater percentage, or let's say for the 42% of Ghanaian educators at the pre-tertiary level, for them to be very comfortable in the private education sector, that relationship is supposed to be brought back in order for us to be very mainstream in the education sector. Other than that, our relationship with the education regulatory bodies, be NASIA, NTC, and NACA, is hanging. That is the first one. The second one has to do with the fact that we need not to start the TVET at the senior high school. The TVET is the backbone for the reformation or the transformation of education as we speak now. All the mobile phones that we have, the tag that has been given to us now, are coming from China. And it is a younger one, KG children, who are doing this. So if we have TVET service, their service should not be at the senior high school level. We need to have a curriculum parallel with the grammar, so that those who want to be in the carpentry can learn from KG. Those who want to be in the mason can practice that. Those who want to be in any of the artisan work can have it from the basics. Why do you want me to change my path after you have exposed me to grammar at the senior high school? And if my colleagues are telling me that, Maboa, why do you come and defend that? It's not true. So if you want to create, or let's say solve that myth, the best way to do, because the curriculum was introduced in 2018, and based on policy reforms, 5 years we have to review it. Let's review the curriculum and have a parallel curriculum for the TVET from the KG. That will solve the country's problem for us, and that will save the issue of unemployment issues that we have in this country. Thank you.
Yes. An addition, I beg you. It's a complete. Yo, thank you very much. Yes, I'm just buttressing this, Prof. We should go back to the junior high school workshop system and let it take off from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The infrastructure group, I didn't hear anything about modern kitchen for senior high schools. They said it. Oh, it was captured. Okay. Then the other one has to do with my own group, the governance, the council representation. We said that the composition that is stipulated in the various acts, yes, should be strictly adhered to. Thank you. So maybe we need to add that.
Can I go?
Thank you very much. I want to take up from where the lady who spoke about carers did. I think that caring or whatever they do is nursing. And we have realized over the years that because they do not add even the science of nursing to it, most people are messing up instead of caring for these people. At the council, we are almost through with the policy of home care, and that it is nursing. And so I would ask that you should not go there. And apart from that, a lot of your products after the career, they are not satisfied because they do not have career pathway, and therefore they want to come to the nursing so that we give them license. But we said that no, that is not our policy. That is not what it's stipulated in the Act. And so please, we would want that things are done well. Unfortunately, you have few of them go to 2 months school, 1 month school, 3 months, I don't know if I want to say school or education, and then they go into people's houses to care for people with diabetes, hypertension, and all that. So it is difficult for them even to come up with the cues when people are getting worse. And now we have a lot of people with stroke. Why? Because of some of these things. So I think that we are doing the policies almost done. Let us ensure, because we have a lot of the nurse assistants who are not even employed, who can be employed to do some of these caring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We take one from the back.
Okay,
yes, please.
Thank you. I have 1 minute.
Okay.
All right. Quickly, when we presented on...
Can I respond to Madam? Then you come in. Thank you very much. So for the one who asked the question about caregiving, for your information, that Ghana TVET Service, the Commission for TVET has developed a curriculum in caregiving and caring for people with special needs. And it was done in consultation with a number of stakeholders, including nurses as well. So it is there. It has been finalized under one of the World Bank projects. So if you are an institution that you are interested in running it, you just need to get in touch with the Commission for TVET, and it is there for the taking. In fact, currently, there is almost about 100 trades that have been developed, covering almost all the relevant trade areas. So maybe what you should do is to also try to understand what is being done in the TVET sector. I think a lot of noise is not being made about it. Maybe if they will, TVET service will also try to popularize some of these things, it will help very well. I was waiting for the GTEC boss to sit before I ask my question. There is an issue with accreditation at the tertiary level. Who accredits HND, who accredits BTEC, and all, and the related issues. And I think, as an observer, I see a turf war over there, and it's not helping with development. So it's important that as we are looking at legislation going forward, we should look at how these things will be resolved once and for all, so that technical training will stand as technical training, so that we can together develop our nation. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you. I wanted to respond to your issue of TVET having established programs that deals with nursing without recourse and input of the Nursing and Midwifery Council. The point is, professional programs, whether law, medicine, nursing, must be done in a manner that the input of the body that awards that no, but the most important stakeholder in nursing delivery is the Nursing and Midwifery Council. So I don't know. You need to work with them on that. The second thing has to do with you were asking of turf war between GTEC and the other agents. There's no turf war. We are collaborating to deal with those issues. So I don't think you should be worried about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We go to Professor.
Thank you very much. I was just going to make a quick comment about the dislink between the TVET program and then the Nursing and Midwifery Council, saying that her submission indicated clearly that they probably don't even know that this is happening, but DG has already addressed it. But I want to submit to the committee that worked on the data for decision making. The Common Application Platform, CAPS, has been piloted and tested, and from all indications, is going to roll out in a number of institutions. Now, that is a very big data repository that we can make use of for decision making in higher education. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So, infrastructure, when we presented the pyramid, I just want to clarify that. And to make it clearer, I would like you to just repeat after me. Everybody say sport. Say it again, sport. Say it again, sport. When you get to a traffic light and it is green, what do? No, you go. So what we are saying is, when you, because of where the direction of education is going, to intensify primary education, train learners to become independent learners as they go up, so that they can make use of virtual infrastructure more than physical infrastructure, so that we invest more in primary infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, actually.
Okay. Morning rain.
Let you speak, yeah. Okay, let one man speak. Sit down, and then we conclude.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. My contribution is with respect to the use of research.
Please, you can sit down.
Okay, so my contribution is on research and evidence-based decision making. We need to conscientize ourselves on the use of data right from the early ages or the early stages. For instance, if your child asks you, oh, I want to have rice today, you can let a child know that, oh, we ate rice thrice already this week. We cannot have it again until we have exhausted summer. So that the child growing up will know that your decisions on even what to eat, what to wear, what not to, is data-driven. Then with that, when the child is growing, it becomes a consciousness in him. But we have data management or use of data as courses and programs only from the tertiary stage. And so it does not become a part of us. We just treat them as a course requirement. Let's pass the grades, and then we throw it aside. But when we start from right from the basics, then it becomes a part of us, and we get to a point where we cannot take any decision without referring to what the data is saying. Thank you.
Thank you. At this stage, and at this point, and at this moment, the final words from the chair.
Sports infrastructure.
I am not in a mood to summarize any group's work. I don't intend to dilute anything that has been presented. The presentations have been made by a guild of experts, and we have interfaced with our colleagues around here to distill the best of this. Can I, on this note, thank you for accepting me to be your chair, and can I thank everybody for coming and participating too. From my end, my session is over. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause once again. Chair, thank you very much. At this moment, we want to receive the chairman of the committee for further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Having followed deliberations since yesterday and the submissions, which has been ended by the chairman, who refused to attempt summarizing, I think my closing remarks will be sharing some scenarios with you, and you drawing lessons from them. The first scenario is a saying in the Ewe language. It says, Nunya adidoi ashima suneu. Nunya adidoi ashima suneu. The others here, will someone explain that for us? Yes, please.
It means knowledge is like a baobab tree. You cannot embrace it.
Thank you. Knowledge is like the baobab tree. No one person can embrace it.
Yes.
No one is a repository of wisdom.
Of wisdom or knowledge. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The second scenario, those of you who are lovers of music, especially those who play the piano or the organ, you realize that when you strike on the black key alone, you do not get a harmony. It's only when you blend the white and the black, that is where you get harmony. So think about that one too. And the last one is my own experience. My JHS1 son came home one day with homework. He came and then gave the homework to me. Daddy, I don't understand it. Can you help me? I looked at it and I didn't know anything about it. It had something to do with ICT, specifically CPU. So I advised him to wait for his mother, who was good in those things. When his mother came home, this boy followed his mother to the kitchen and asked his mother in the Akan language, Mama na daddy, onye professor? Mama, is daddy not a professor? So to him, the professor knows it all. But today, if we listen to the divergent opinions that are coming here and there, we realize that knowledge is like a baobab tree. No one person can embrace it. And so it is only when we have had to listen to divergent opinion that we can build collaborative knowledge that will be very useful to the policy that we want to frame for this country. On this note, because we are on voter land, turn to the person on your right or left. And then this one, I'll be looking at our European friends here to see how they'll be doing it. Turn to the person on your left or right with the expression, "Ewe wodolo." Okay. I wish you all the best. Now, just those information for you. Just this information. The zonal engagements have started. And it started here, home, and it will continue. Flyers are going around, so you'll be informed. On 24th, we would have a targeted interaction with the National Union of Ghana students. There are 9 blocks to look at the 5 pillars from student perspective. Then on 26th, we'll be meeting the religious bodies to get their perspective. Then 27th, 28th, we'd have the validation engagement, where we'll come out with key issues emerging from our deliberations for development partners and other stakeholders to validate, to inform the policy framework that we'll be having. From the Secretariat, those of you who would want to go back, it's almost 6 o'clock, I wouldn't recommend that though, but those who would want to go back, you try and then leave your name and your number, Momo number, behind, so they can interact with you. On this note, I say a very big thank you. On behalf of the minister, I say thank you very much for your patience and your contributions. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Chairman, we thank you so much. So we want to bring the session to a close, and we thank each and every one of you. We thank the Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who launched the program successfully. We thank Togbi Asogli, Togbi Apede, and then we thank everyone who have made it here. Your contributions are well noted. They are valuable to us to the way forward on transforming education for sustainable future. So thank you very much. On this note, shall we receive Mr. Mavli Abdul Rahman Yaya to give us a closing prayer. Thank you. Let's receive him with a round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening. Please, shall you join me in a silent prayer? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم آمين آمين.
National Education Forum calling. Let your voice be heard on education in Ghana. Send your input to the National Education Forum Planning Committee via nef@moe.gov.gh. National Education Forum, transforming education. Let's build Ghana together.